Now, for a woman, how would you say, because I think for too long we've just kind of treated women like guys. Like, okay, this is how we're struggling, so you're probably struggling the same way, kind of a cookie cutter approach. What would be distinct, and that's what I liked about what you did in the book, is recognizing that a woman's temptations are different than a man's, her triggers are different than a man's, and the kind of pastoral solutions needed for a feminine heart is different than a man's. And so just start with maybe temptations. Like, how would the temptations of a woman, for the most part, be distinct from those of a guy? And yeah, obviously there's going to be some commonality, but I think in what ways would you find that women are uniquely tempted?
Definitely. So, like you said, the basic ones, stress, exhaustion, insecurity, for all addictions kind of is similar for women. Insecurities is a little unique because women have different types of insecurities. But the number one trigger, which is so important for women to know, is our hormonal cycles. This is something that men don't have to worry about, is that for women, our desire for sexuality or our sexual relations is determined on our hormonal cycle. So when we're in a week of ovulation, so you ovulate on one day as a woman, but there's a period of time surrounding that one day where our desires biologically are heightened to desire sex. And that is just unique for women because if you're fighting this temptation, this is a struggle of years. I work with so many women and they're like, Kelsey, I finally have broken free, but I just can't get over that once a month hurdle, just once a month. I'm like, you don't say. Have you started tracking your cycle? Have you started to look into these things biologically? And sure enough, it always lines up with what's going on here. And so there are chemical things that could be causing extra temptation and triggers, which is not to be, throw your hands in the air. Well, shoot, now I have even more obstacles. But actually use that knowledge and use our bodies as a gift and a good thing to seek healthier alternatives during those times, because essentially what your body is desiring is intimacy with another, which doesn't have to be sex. There are many ways that we can share in intimacy emotionally and make those connections with friends to kind of help offset that kind of temptation. So,
okay, so if a woman is in that phase of the cycle and the estrogen is starting to climb up and leading up to ovulation and she's mindful, okay, that time of the month, this is going to get a little bit more tempting. It's going to get a little more tough. What are some things practically you had started to mention, some accountability? What are some things that she can do as that time of the month is approaching to resist, the temptations? Because I had read recently that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is human connection and intimacy. That's what's needed to fill the void that we're often just dumping all the addiction into to try to fill us up. So as a woman, at that time of the month, the estrogen amount is climbing up. What does she do at that time to kind of, okay, this is going to get a little tough, and here's how I'm going to prepare myself for the temptations coming up?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I always talk about pornography and masturbation are symptoms of a deeper desire in our hearts. And like you said, I think for many years it was much more self-mastery, just grit your teeth, get over your temptations. But rather it is connection, it is relationship that we are seeking when we're seeking these things. And so that's exactly the antidote, if you will. During these times of greater temptation, and if you know that that's in your cycle and that's a big trigger for you, kind of as I was mentioning, schedule friend dates, going out to lunch more often, working out more, physical activity to kind of get some of that energy out physically can also be really helpful. So if you're not big on a gym or with COVID, it's not possible, like going for a walk. I mean, it doesn't have to be pumping steel, but you can do active things. Scheduling phone calls with long distance friends or game nights, things like that, where you're not just in a room watching a movie in the dark, kind of turning yourself off with friends, but engaging conversation, sharing your heart, because, feeling known is really helpful to make those connections that we're talking about here. So yeah, those would be some initial things I'd say is you can start planning fun, exciting things with other people during those times that you might have greater temptation.